Welcome back to the Whispering GM podcast. Today, we're going to do a flip through. Sent to me last year by its publisher, I have Flipping and Turning Magazine, number 5, Autumn 2021. Still in the shrink. So let's tear this bad boy open and see what's inside. Now, the first thing that you notice as you get into this zine is that my theme music is different than last episode. So as much as I like that Imran piece, I might have gotten a copyright note on on that one. It's in dispute because but we're not going to use that at least for the next 22 days. What was I talking about? Talking to the zine itself, the first thing you'll notice is the artwork. This is true for essentially any product. While a artwork does not make a piece, artwork can definitely break it or kind of push it to the next level. Gameability and interest is more important than artwork, but artwork can be the difference between a professional grade product and one that is crap. Looking into the front cover, we see our index and we see the publisher and all of the people who were involved. The cover is Augusta Aggie Pryor, and I am going to write that name down because that cover is gorgeous. On the back cover, it looks like they've got an NCYF piece who is probably in public domain at this point, someone known for pirates and romantic imagery, but I was a little surprised. I thought that the front cover was that. So it's got that same kind of vibe to it. It's got that same kind of quality to it. And then if you look closely, you see the podcast, the Grog Talk podcaster types on the front. So that's probably not a public domain piece in that they are still alive. Thumbing through, the interior art is, you can tell which pieces are done by different people. Some of it is more well executed than others, but there's nothing in here that I would characterize as being unattractive. It's got a very OSR vibe to it. Like you can see kind of on a majority of the pieces, there's kind of like the thick lines, the dark contrasts, and then it fits deeply into relevance to the things that it's around. Continuing down the page, talking to some of these credits, while I admittedly did not recognize as many of the artists as I probably should have, I definitely recognized as I was looking through the writing contributions. Specifically, as we pass through here, we find Lou Pulsifer, Pulsifer Games. I'll put a link to his website in the comment. You would probably know him from work on Diplomacy, variants, did some of his contributions to Dragon Magazine, White Dwarf, Space Gamer, and in more recent vintage, some Swords and Wizardry. Then you also see Stephen Marsh, and I had to look that up just to make sure I wasn't insane. Stephen Marsh being the lead writer in the Cook Expert set. That is the expert set that came out in 1981 as part of our beloved Lingua Franca Basic Expert. So, not wanting to go too deeply, you see about 24 names here. I'll let the rest of the world figure out who these people are. But more importantly, I just wanted to highlight a couple that I immediately noted as I was thumbing in to kind of highlight what to expect coming out of this. From there, with that in mind, I'm not going to go page by page, but I want to highlight a couple different things. First, some new rules that are introduced and some new systems that you can incorporate into your game. Second, some articles, some coupons. I'm pretty sure the coupons in this one are expired, but such is life. And then lastly, the most exciting part, which I'll kind of save for the end. In the art section, when I was talking about the back cover appears to be an NCYF piece, most people who will be familiar with that name are going to recognize Robinson Crusoe or the black spot. That what's that one? Muppet Treasure Island. So that kind of art is going to be is the common tone and subject that's associated with that artist. In the same vein, that kind of maritime, Caribbean, Corsair attitude appears to be the primary theme for Flipping and Turning number 5. If you hadn't noticed already, based on the cover art, where it is essentially a prow siren, the interior contains scenarios, rules, and commentaries that support an island-hopping maritime experience. To speak to some of the new rules and subsystems that are included in this booklet, in the dead center, you can find Windjammer. It's stapled in there. I'm sure I could probably pull this out and use it independently, but I don't want to for fear of breaking it. But anyway, Windjammer is rules for ship-compatible content. This appears to be the special first edition 2021, and it was written by David Thompson and Robert Ritchie. As we page in, you get some information that pertain to the crew that is necessary on a sailing ship. There are rules about the roles PCs can take on a sailing ship. It talks a little bit about speed and distances and the turning radii of different types of vessels. And all along the way, we have references to the AD&D book set. So there's some references to the DMG as it pertains to where AD&D handles ship movement and activity, and in the PHB where otherwise is appropriate. It identifies an alternate method for handling ship-to-ship combat. It kind of takes it turn by turn instead of round by round, which I guess sort of makes sense because you're talking about much bigger distances when ships are moving about and trying to engage with one another. And in addition, it has some different factors to help differentiate movement based on wind direction, the type of ship you're in, and so on. It introduces a subsystem where you can lose a mast, you can damage the sails, different rules for galley-type vessels, rules for collisions between boats, and a long list of weapons and spells that can damage a ship. There's a bit about fire, then kind of terminates with a list of different vessels. Triremes, quadremes, longships, caravels, carracks, cogs. I'm just reading down the list. These should be familiar. These are all medieval or medieval kind of or at least Iron Age vessels. While technically I think the trireme was done away with before the medieval period, you also have cutters and sloops, which didn't show up until the age of sail. And so all of this is, like I said, compatible with the AD&D book set, and it comes with a full scenario, a Windjammer scenario called Smuggler's Blues. I wish I had captured my original reaction as I was thumbing through and trying to read this to give you an intelligent response, because I got really excited when I hit this piece. So not only do we have these extension rules, but also we have some separate monsters, we have some separate hex map, and the tactics that different ships will use when working on the hex map, and it gives you a way to, you can incorporate into your game fairly quickly a Windjammer type experience. And then if you like it, run with it, keep it, run your Robert Louis Stevenson themed adventure. There's that. I really enjoyed that. And in addition, you have I perceived this to be kind of more tongue-in-cheek, closer to the beginning. We're all familiar with the AD&D potion miscability rules. That is, in a video game or in more modern tabletop, you're allowed to quaff as many potions as you want and to try to keep yourself going. But in the old school epoch, not the case. If you drank too many potions, if you drank less of a potion, there were rules to cover how that might affect you. And while those rules tended to be more harsh, to try to discourage players from being greedy. These are a little bit tongue-in-cheek. So a little article warning: this potion may have side effects, written by Dan Gormansky, gives you some rules about, depending on who manufactured the potion. If you're in a back alley with a guy in a trench coat, it's more likely to have side effects than if you get it from a more reputable vendor. Some of them are pretty intense, like instant death is possible if I guess someone gave you turpentine instead of that water walk. But other smaller ones, like a skin rash, hives, or headache, are on this little table. Now, so some of them will have in-game effects, some of them will not. Two of them reference pages in the Dungeon Master's Guide, so it ties back again into Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. And so this offers some fun role-playing opportunities for people who have a more tongue-in-cheek, or also, if you have a more serious campaign, you could theoretically include this seriously. You could make all potions do this. You could make, who knows? This could very easily be used seriously. Full disclosure, as always, I am not as versed in AD&D as I should be. I've had a lot more experience running and playing in the LBB version or in the basic line. So I would be very curious to see someone who had a lot more experience or who runs a genuine game, specifically someone maybe who had a little bit of exposure to Spelljammer, to see how that kind of plays out. How are these different from each other? How does this incorporate into an AD&D game? And how does it differ from the experience you would have had if you were trying to run a Treasure Island kind of experience with no supplements whatsoever? Next, thinking about other standard magazine content, you have articles and you have some advertisements. Now, some of these, it's not pervasive, it's not intrusive, and some of these are actually pretty good. Like this issue had a coupon code for Noble Knight. Now, I've bought several things from Noble Knight, so while I can't guarantee that Noble Knight is going to get advertised in every one of these, you're not going to run into something in here that's not going to be familiar to your needs. Now, there's some other stuff, like there's some art Patreons, there is some Dungeon Seeds and other entertainment companies that have got small ads in here. But again, it's much less intrusive in this zine than it is in, say, Vogue or one of the other magazines my wife reads. To speak to article content, though, the first thing that I kind of spotted and thumbed through was the Ask the Gibbering Mouther. There is probably a joke behind that I don't know. That's my own fault for not listening long enough. But this was originally I originally thought this was going to be kind of humor, but because the first bit is, "Who put you in charge? I am not in charge, the Grogtark Emperor." But really, as you look in, there's a lot of helpful stuff. Like there's a clarification on the Grog Masters, how they interpret a druid ability. There's asking about stacking spells, because that's a real concern. Someone coming to AD&D from 5th edition or from video games may not have the same mindset that someone coming into AD&D from a blank slate, or coming into it from OD&D or coming into it from Holmes would have. There's also a good question: what is the age cutoff for being considered a grognard? Signed Too Young. Now, I think we already know what Mr. Too Young thinks, but the Gibbering Mouther offers a very kind and very encouraging remark. There is no age limit to being a grognard, and that being a grognard is a state of mind, and some people are grognards from birth. They do specify that if you're under 30 and want to be a grognard, that is in confluence with the DMG page 13 mature age category of racial age delineation, you should be a grunter. So I'm not grunting at all, but I don't know. I don't know if that one's going to catch on. I haven't heard it since. I will defer to the gibber. That is obviously not the only contribution from like the nonfiction kind of talking. The Lou Pulsifer I mentioned earlier, his contribution is a short essay on comic books, comic movies, and RPGs, so you'd be able to get his perspective there. There's a little bit on commentary about some terminology, quote, from the dictionary of E. Gary Gygax, abbreviated EGG, and then a little bit of there's multiple articles in here that are not a waste of your time. While I will admit to skimming them for the purposes of the review, I tend to gravitate towards pretty pictures and usable content, game usable content. I definitely did not find myself groaning like, oh, I have to read this for the purposes of writing a review. Yeah, so it's all thematically appropriate to the tone of the zine. Lastly, I kind of saved this till the end. I kind of promised it would be the best part, and not the best part of the review, but from my perspective, the best part of the zine. And if I were investing in a zine, what would I invest in it for? Adventure. I mentioned earlier that there is a Windjammer rule set that will help you incorporate kind of an Age of Sail, kind of high seas kind of feel to it. And with that, there is a hex map. In addition, there are several monsters, new monsters, like they have a white whale, which I think is undead, but there are new druid spells that pertain specifically to the sea, like Ink Cloud. You can have an octopus druid. And then there's also new takes on some monsters, squidmen, which are kind of like merfolk, but they have obviously squid underhalves instead of fish underhalves. And so you have their statistics are for first edition, so you could very easily just kind of cross off the part where it says magic resistance, psionic ability, and use it for BX. But more importantly, so they have some monsters, they have a hex map that's larger scale that you can put your boats in. There's additionally another hex map called Lady Greyfist of Wolftree Island. This is an adventure, a whole adventure. There's a small hex map that kind of it has a 10-mile scale, then it drops down to 1 mile when you get to the adventure site. There's a specific hex, a waterfall hex that has some points of interest. That's a separate product entirely. And at the end, there is a module, the Lighthouse, which is a scenario that was designed for CAFCON 2020, but because the con was canceled, the author passed away, it was then republished here in his honor. So with that in mind, this is fairly well illustrated. There's a lighthouse. I like lighthouse modules. Folks who are familiar with my blog might remember that. But there are several different buildings. There are several different encounters depending on the buildings, and then kind of a scripted area. And so where I'm going with this is there are several disparate systems, several disparate maps, and several disparate location sites that, holding this booklet and treating it as a module, you could weave into your own campaign. And frankly, that is the reason I'm coming into this review with a kind of a positive tone. I was very excited, and truly, I wish that I had been doing this kind of off the cuff. I kind of when I read through the booklet and I kind of scripted out, okay, these are the things I want to talk about that'll bring your attention to what I think are important parts to consider. But I wish I had caught my original reaction, because as I was going through this, I just got more and more excited, because you could take these things and you could very easily plot them together next to each other, zoom in, zoom out, but you don't even have to, okay, this is here, and you could run a mini campaign. I could very easily see taking the material in this book and playing with it for at least 5 or 6 sessions, depending on how much of your game you guys spend in shopping sessions. I kid, that's more of a how much do you role play versus how much do you role play. But the point I'm getting at is this booklet, I do recommend it. So I'm not in the does I'll recommend this or not section yet, but I'm going to say that I do, because this is a great example of very useful content. Like this, if I were trying to create a similar amount of content, it would take me several months of blog posts, and this is not a big book. This is only about 56 pages long, so it's like what, half the length of the BX and so it's pretty standard, I think, for some of the old TSR modules, but you could plug this into a game. You could run a little campaign off the side. You could plug this into an existing adventure, and there's enough content in here to keep you going for a couple months of weekly play. And so that's the most exciting part. And truthfully, that if I were looking for a reason to buy this, that would be my reason to invest in this zine. So, what is the official Clear Square Ring Mail review? Well, officially, if you are running a first edition game or any truly OSR-compatible system and want to incorporate the romantic themes of Robinson Crusoe or Treasure Island or similar NCYF-inspired milieu, this might be worth considering for you. The presentation is good, the artwork is good, there's some inconsistencies in the style, but that's to be expected, honestly, with the number of people that kind of contributed and got content into this booklet. And truly, looking at the price point, I think it's fair based on the amount of content that you get. So this specific zine is available from the Smoldering Dung Games website, I believe. As of the recording, there were copies in stock that you could get for $15, or you can subscribe. Editor here. No, you cannot. I've been informed after the fact that the Flipping and Turning magazine has ceased production after 5 years. They had a good run, but unfortunately, I took too long in my review, and it just couldn't cut it. That said, back catalog, everything else about buying back catalog is accurate, and you can also get the back catalog on Amazon, which I will try to put a link in the show notes. If you are not a member of the Grog Talk Patreon, then it bumps up to $50. Looking at the Grog Talk Patreon, I can see that there have been recent posts as well as previews posted for Patreon members for the next edition of Flipping and Turning that's coming out at the end of 2025. That said, the Patreon is actually really kind of egalitarian. There's the copper level, which is $1 a month, and then all the way up to Electrum, all the other species, or Platinum, sorry. Electrum is only one step up. All the way up to Platinum. There are limited number of gold and platinum seats. I am not and those are those top ones. If you get in quick, there are some remaining, and there may be you can get into a game with some of the Grog Talk names, but the biggest thing is you'll get access to these previews, you get access to these other pieces of content, and you'll be eligible for the discount on the Flipping and Turning magazine. So you say it's a subscription. Is it worth my time? Well, I want to. I was sent not only number 5, but also number 16, summer of 2024. And my plan is I'm not going to review that this episode. We're already running into our time limit, or the time limit I like to self-impose. So what I'm going to do is a couple weeks from now, I'm going to read through that next one. I'm going to release a review of that next one, and between now and then, we'll be able to identify. We have one of the early editions, and then we have one of the more recent ones. And then based on that 5-year kind of interlude, you can make that choice as to whether, okay, is this consistent? Do we have the same? Is it worth my subscription? Can I trust them to be consistently good? And hopefully, by illustrating both of those points, that I can kind of give that to you. I can help you make that decision for you. Like I said, the Patreon has a discount for it. Smoldering Dung Games has Flipping and Turning, a whole bunch of their back issues, all the way back to like issue number 3. There's a that's interesting. I accidentally clicked. There's an Angry Monk answer dice, so you can have yes, but, no. So you can, but that except there's a picture of an angry monk on it. But anyway, the where I was going with this is there's also other items that are available on the Smoldering Dung Games website, including some other adventures, among which might be Severed Fate, written by Jonathan Keith and Laurel Nicholson. But man, Og, you are dropping a whole lot of content right now. We'll jump into that. To conclude, if this sounds good to you, head over to Smoldering Dung Games. You should be able to get it. Alternatively, head over to the Patreon. You'll get some more information on it. And I wanted to take a special moment to slow down my talk and say thank you to Smoldering Dung Games for two things. One, I received a copy of the 3 zines that I mentioned, the Severed Fate module, Flipping and Turning number 5 and Flipping and Turning number 16. For the purposes of review. I want to say thank you for sending that my way. Thank you for trusting me with that. And most importantly, thank you for your patience. So these were actually sent to me last spring when the summer 2024 issue was coming out. And it had been my hope to get a review out for these pieces last year before the holiday season to kind of, get people in and see if that's something that's into you. And I utterly failed. And I am so appreciative, specifically to the authors and publishers of the Flipping and Turning magazine. Thank you specifically, Rob Ritchie, the primary editor, for your patience with me. Rob was the one who reached out to me and offered to send this my way. And I appreciate your patience that it took me a full year to get around to reviewing. I apologize. Like I said, I intend to go through all 3 of the things that were sent to me over the course of the next couple months. This is not a review channel per se, but if I have something that I want to share out that I think that people who listen to me will enjoy, I absolutely want to share it with you, because that's, at the end of the day, that's the point. We want to take awesome stuff that you can take from the internet, from the wider world, and throw it at your players at your table. So again, thank you, Smoldering Dung. Again, thank you, Rob. And at the end of the day, thank you, Grogs, for a wonderful podcast for as long as it ran, and for the convention that I'll hopefully go to one of these years. It's only about an hour south of where I live, depending on how badly you want to get there. And there you have it, my honest opinion and transparent review of issue 5 of Flipping and Turning magazine. Thank you, Rob and Smoldering Dung. Thank you, listeners, for sticking with me so far. And thank you, Sovereign Lord. Thank you for this platform. Thank you for the time we have together, both on the airwaves and on the table. And may our communion at that game table bring us closer to communion at yours. And from here I'll sign off to the bluesy tones of Michael Ramirez C. Delve on, listeners. Delve on.